Hello and welcome. This is Deliver Seamless Order Ahead Experiences with Location and Personalization. Produced by Nation's Restaurant News, this program is being sponsored and presented by Radar. Radar is a geofencing platform empowering enterprise product and growth teams to build timely and relevant location-based experiences to help build revenue and customer loyalty. My name is Alan Little, and on behalf of NRN, I'll be your moderator for today's program with Shafiq Shivji of mParticle and Nick Patrick of Radar. Before we hear from Nick and Shafiq, let's take care of some housekeeping, though. First, please note that this presentation is being recorded for on-demand viewing, and you'll receive an email with that link when that replay is available. Next, let's discuss your webinar console. If you experience difficulties with the audio or the slides do not advance, refresh your console by pressing the F5 key on a Windows system. Use Command and R keys if you're on an Apple device. If that fails, you can look to the Help widget at the bottom of your screen or type technical questions into the Q&A box. Speaking of that Q&A box, you may use it at any time to enter questions you might have about our topic, and we'll get to as many as time permits later in the session. Our presenters will share a bit more about themselves and their organizations during their look at seamless ordering ahead experiences, but let me first offer up a few of their career notes. Nick Patrick is Chief Executive and co-founder of Radar, and since 2021 has also been an angel investor in startups related to software as a service, developer tools, and location. Previously, he was a senior director of product at Handy, and that's the online marketplace connecting providers and seekers of residential cleaning and handyman services, as well as home goods, and also formerly was a product manager for both location noting social pioneer Foursquare and Microsoft. Shafiq Shivji is Group Product Marketing Manager at mParticle, a customer data aggregator platform for business. Previously, he was head of product at digital marketing and IT consultancy Vesper Solutions, product marketing lead for ecosystem and developer experience at Auth0, the identity management and security services provider, and senior sales engineer at hosted communications platform firm MarketTouch Media. Okay, with those preliminaries out of the way, we're ready to get to the heart of our program, so I'm going to hand things over to Nick Patrick. Nick, take us away.
All right, thanks so much, Alan. Let me go on the right slide here. Are we seeing the radar slide? I think we are. Cool. Well, thanks, Alan. Welcome, everybody, to Deliver Seamless Order Ahead Experiences with Location and Personalization. Going to be talking about a few different topics today. Wanted to start by talking about some of the trends that we see, not just in the QSR space, but also when it comes to consumer experiences in general. We're going to be focusing on order ahead and personalization specifically. We'll talk about some of the applications for location to delivering great customer experiences. Tied to those two things, we'll talk a little bit about how Radar and mParticle work together, particularly on some of the personalization bits, and then we'll have time for questions and discussion. So just to sort of frame the discussion today, we're in a time when consumers have a lot of choices, more choices and higher expectations than ever. At Radar, we talk a lot about the Amazon effect or the Uber effect. We're all used to, as consumers, ordering a package on Amazon and having it show up on our doorstep the next day, seeing exactly where it is in transit. We're used to calling an Uber and have it come to us. We can see where it is on the map, see its exact ETA. Same thing with Uber Eats if we want to order food for delivery. And so I think if you're a QSR brand, obviously you have a lot of competition out there in terms of other QSR competitors and in terms of what's going to get folks to come to your physical restaurant as opposed to ordering for delivery. What's going to get them to install your app instead of a competitor's app, to put it on their home screen and come back to it again and again. We're also in a time where consumers are more sensitive, more thoughtful about their data than ever. So when we talk about things like personalization and delivering seamless data-driven experiences, doing it in a privacy-conscious way is also paramount. And so, this presents challenges, but also opportunities. We commissioned our first study with Forrester late last year and found that a lot of QSR brands are rising to the challenge by investing in personalized on-premise app experiences and also using location and geofencing to deliver really seamless pickup experiences. And we see these as kind of, defining the next decade of digital investment and transformation in the QSR space. Privacy-conscious personalization and seamless order pickup experiences. And, we think a lot about location at Radar today, but, our view is that location is really the most important customer experience investment that the QSR brands can make today. We see location as touching really every part of the QSR customer journey. Everything from attracting nearby customers, helping them find near restaurants. Maybe that takes the form of a store locator, or maybe that takes the form of messaging, push notifications when a user is nearby a restaurant, to seamless order ahead and pickup experiences. Not just scheduled arrival times, but also using location as a signal to understand when somebody is on their way, when they're 5 minutes away, using that real-time location data as a signal to sequence orders or fire orders. Also understanding when a customer arrives and notifying staff at a restaurant, so they can put the order out or bring it out, whatever the case may be, and also help customers understand what they're supposed to do when they arrive on premise, where they're supposed to go. Are they supposed to come in the restaurant and pick it up, pull through the drive-through, so on and so forth. And then finally, when you are on premise and open the app, what is the user seeing? I think a lot of apps are static regardless of your location, but it might make sense to show order ahead functionality when a user is off premise. When they're on premise, show them in-store only offers, or show them their order information if they're there for a pickup, so on and so forth. We think a lot about how we can help QSR brands, whether they're big established players or up and comers, solve these use cases with location. Obviously, doing this in a privacy conscious way, in a very accurate way, is very important. Ultimately, our goal at Radar is to help QSR brands deliver really world-class experiences with location and do it quickly and easily. We're lucky enough to work with a lot of different customers, a lot of different industries, but the restaurant space is one of our specialties. Work with a number of folks here. I'm sure you'll recognize some of the logos. Really focused on personalized on-prem experiences and seamless pickup experiences. At the end of the day, driving more mobile ordering, driving more digital revenue, reducing wait times through location signals. So this is really where we focus at Radar. In terms of how we solve this, geofencing, obviously geofencing your restaurants and understanding, when somebody's inside of a geofence is really critical. We have a variety of place data you can tap into as well. So we know where all of the McDonald's and Paneras and Starbucks in the world are. We can help you, draw really accurate polygons for all of your locations. Trip tracking for live ETAs when somebody is on their way to pick up an order at a restaurant. Also powering things like store locators and location verification as well. So really our goal is to provide location signals to help folks deliver these really seamless experiences. I think location data is only one type of data that's really important for personalization and seamless pickup experiences. I think bringing other types of customer data in as well is really, really critical. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Shafiq to talk a little bit about where mParticle comes in.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on today's webinar. I'm really excited to talk about our partnership and talk about how we've helped over 50% of the top QSR companies build amazing customer experiences with their first-party data. As you illustrated, we also see the challenges that QSRs have navigating these post-COVID realities. You can order food from anyone or anywhere with just a tap of the finger. You mentioned Uber Eats as an example. So, as the competitive offerings increase, the customer experience is ever more essential. Based on our data, I think we have a similar conclusion that we know that consumers favor mobile engagement when it comes to the QSR space. So it's a really good place to start if you haven't already. And when you're considering that mobile experience, it's really important, and Nick, you mentioned this a few times, but I want to harp on it more, is it's important to think about real time. You have to keep up at the pace at which your customers move. And perhaps I'm preaching to the choir here, but that requires real-time capability across your entire CX stack. And that's where mParticle comes into the picture and really shines. We're that platform that stitches together various CX tools, of course, like Radar, but think of a Braze or an Amplitude or a Punch loyalty. And we have more than 300 additional partners where you can assemble these real-time digital experiences that foster the loyalty and drive revenue. And we do all of this without a heavy reliance on engineering resources. With the single integration in your app, you can bi-directionally connect to all your marketing tools and unlock the value of things like customer data sitting in your warehouse. All of this is done in a very compliant manner. Nick mentioned that how privacy is very important. I 100% agree and concur with that conclusion. If you look at, I would articulate it as a customer's preference. One of them is privacy now. Please respect my privacy is a preference now. So with a platform like ours, you have the fine-grained controls so we can help you adhere with your governance and privacy requirements. Anybody heard of GDPR? With mParticle serving as that central repository of your customer data, we can create these rich customer profiles, which gives marketers the ability to then segment audiences based on those individual preferences. And with our recent investments in analytics and machine learning, we can actually automate personalization in real time. So now imagine this. Imagine the experiences you can create when you have this full context of your customers, and pair that with real-time location information and having those compliant attributes and behavioral data. You can do things like deliver the right message at the right time at scale. As an example, let's say you use location data to see if the weather is cold and present an offer for a cup of coffee. But I was talking to Alan earlier, and he's like, well, I don't want coffee, but say you want something else. Well, with Cortex, you can use machine learning capabilities to personalize those offers. So say someone like Alan doesn't want to drink coffee, but prefers hot chocolate instead. We can use our machine learning capabilities to predict the right offer for that particular customer. The possibilities are endless. And the point that I want to make and emphasize here is that together with Radar and mParticle's robust ecosystem, partner ecosystem, we can deliver world-class experiences that will delight your customers.
Awesome. Thanks, Shafiq. Just one quick call out. We're going to be at MerTech in March, and obviously if folks are there, we'd love to see you, so feel free to swing by the booth. We went through the slides relatively quickly, and so I think would love to invite Alan back. I think we had a couple discussion topics to run through, and excited to take questions from the audience as well. So
we do. And folks in the audience, you got two bright guys here with data aggregating and location, and so take advantage of the opportunity. They have respect for your time, so they're not going to go on and on when they could easily be answering some direct questions. So send up a question, send up a flare, shoot a question into that Q&A area, and ask. We do have a couple here, and I'm going to get to them. So let me move down my screen and get to them. And this question asks, how accurate can location signals get, and how does this solution apply to the drive-through? I'm going to aim that at Nick, but
Sure.
Shafiq is always welcome to add some other thoughts after Nick does his thing. But Nick, what about that drive-through?
Yeah,
sensitivity?
Yeah, definitely. I love the call out about drive-through specifically. I think when a lot of folks think about using location signals for order ahead, they're thinking about curbside pickup. Honestly, with labor challenges right now in the QSR space, we're seeing a bit of a shift away from curbside pickup and to other order ahead channels like picking it up in the restaurant or drive-through. So I think when we think about accuracy here, and we'll talk a bit about how accurate things can get. I think maybe it's important to level set on why accuracy is important. And I think also to consider the sort of, non-location enabled order ahead experience. So, oftentimes we'll see folks roll out an initial order ahead experience with, scheduled pickup times, maybe not incorporating location signals. I think there can be challenges when folks, don't show up at the scheduled time, or they show up early. Maybe they arrive on premise and they don't know where to go. So we see location signals as basically giving the restaurant insight into customers running behind, customers running ahead of schedule. You can use that to kind of more efficiently sequence prep orders. But in order for that to work, the data has to be accurate, right? If you're getting the signal that a customer is 3 minutes away, you want to be able to really trust that they actually are 3 minutes away and not prepare the food prematurely. If you want to understand whether somebody's pulling into the curbside area or the drive-through, you need to be able to get really precise, understanding their location data. And so, long story short, in terms of how accurate location can get, and I'm sure all of us have used Apple Maps or Google Maps and kind of seen how precise the blue dot can be. It's not always perfect, but in general, our guidance to customers is accurate down to a few meters outside. That's reliable enough to tell if somebody's in the parking lot, in the store, in the drive-through. We see a lot of customers as well layer in additional signals like, are you within range of a Bluetooth beacon or a Wi-Fi access point, to actually get really precise indoors as well. So that's sort of how we think about accuracy, how we think about drive-through. Shafiq made the point that being able to action off of this data in real time is also critical. It's not terribly useful to know if somebody is 3 minutes away 5 minutes ago, right? You want to know right now, and so I think in addition to location being an important signal, you want it to be accurate, you want to be able to trust it, and you also want to ensure that it's coming in real time and you can join it with other customer data in real time.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add to that is, the location, obviously the real-time location information is very important in a pickup scenario. But when you're also thinking about trying to personalize offers, making sure that you have accurate information about the customer is also very important. On top of that, sending an offer that has little relevance to the customer will have the opposite effect of what you're intending, and will actually create maybe disloyalty. I don't know if that's a real word, but so I would add that it's even important, just beyond location, is having a good data quality and a data quality plan in mind when you're thinking about that. And mParticle has tools in there. We have it in our platform to ensure that the shape of the data is good and that the actual data itself is in good shape, and making sure that we retain that accuracy and not have the garbage in, garbage out problem.
Hey, Nick, I had a quick question for you along these lines, and that is, obviously location is important when you talk about dropping orders and or placing them on the pickup racks, or if you're in a drive-through, it's having things ready to go quick. Have you found some of your users actually use location to personalize greetings at the door, or they know at least to look for bewildered looking people who come walking into the restaurant within an alert time? So can you get that personal with this stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. At the end of the day, I think the way to think about Radar is an event generator, right? And so we're going to surface these location signals, and you can really do anything with that data. You can certainly forward it to mParticle in real time and send it downstream, but you might choose to use that to trigger a notification to greet the user on their phone. We also have some customers that will display this information on a kitchen display system, so you kind of see the orders there, and kind of you're able to populate real-time arrival and ETA information. We also have some basic dashboarding capabilities out of the box for this, and we integrate with an order management system called Olo, and a few others as well in their kitchen display system called Expo. But really the possibilities are limitless, right? You could welcome somebody at the drive-through call box. You could certainly show this in other customer-facing dashboards in the restaurant as well. And so we're thinking through that with some of our customers right now. But both kind of restaurant staff-facing messaging in the name of operational efficiency, which is really, really important right now, but also kind of consumer-facing messaging, whether that's digital signage or in the app or whatever.
Good to know. Thanks. This is a question for Shafiq, and it asks, how does AI next best offer work with location?
That's a great question. So why don't we take the example I gave earlier, where we presented that personalized message based on weather. In this scenario, we would get the location data from the app and ask Radar to tell us, hey, is this customer within a geofence of one of the restaurants? At the same time, we would send that geo data, the GPS data, to do a weather lookup. Say we have an integration with AccuWeather's API, and be able to pin that real-time weather to their profile while we're seeing if it hits a geofence. And then we could send that entire profile data into our machine learning model and to predict the next best offer. In this case, it would be hot chocolate, right, Alan? That's what you wanted. And then when in range, the customer would then be added. So then radar is telling us, hey, here's a customer in the geofence. And when in range, we would add that customer to an audience that's then forwarded to a messaging service like Braze. We could, in a push notification could go out with the offer. We also have a tool called Profile API, so we could actually send that back to the mobile app, so you can even like have it in the app itself, not just a push notification. And then we would actually record the outcome of that interaction. So say, was the push notification opened? We would record that in your analytics tool. So we would forward that data to the analytics tool for tracking and analysis. And then we also save the purchase data. So we track the entire life cycle of that interaction in the customer's profile. So you can do things like LTV to further personalize and say, hey, this is a high value customer. So maybe we offer something even more in terms of loyalty. So, I want to just pile on to what Nick said is you can really craft these customer experiences and in so much detail to create these amazing experiences for your customers. It sounds cheesy, but you're only really limited to your imagination.
Well, that's noteworthy. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, the whole topic is fascinating, and the possibilities and the implications are really great. Here's a question that is asking Nick. Let's see here. Location data is sensitive. How does radar think about privacy?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think all customer data is sensitive to some degree, right? Location data is obviously, particularly sensitive. I think the real key is that you get clear customer opt-in and consent to start. Assuming you have that, I think it becomes a question of how much data are you collecting and how long are you storing it, right? So the way we think about that at Radar is we have a wide variety of options for choosing how much data you're collecting in the first place. Am I only collecting location data when the app is open, or if the user is granted background location permissions, do I want to collect data in the background as well? What am I doing with that data, right? You're collecting a lot long. For example, which geofences do you have set up, right? Do you have geofences set up for just your restaurants? Do you want to also understand if your customers are, nearby a competitor? A lot of our customers, have locations in airports or malls. Do you want to understand that? Do you want to understand what country or state or postal code somebody is in? So I think choosing. Do you want to collect data when the app is open, or also when the app is backgrounded? Which geofences have you set up? And then I think the question becomes like, well, what do you want to store next to it? Are you storing, user IDs or other customer data? Generally we find that it's a best practice to minimize PII stored with location data. But then how long do you want to retain it as well? If you have a geofence entry event or a trip arrival event for a pickup, do you want to store that for 30 days, 7 days, 1 day? So, choosing short data retention periods and minimizing the amount of data that you're collecting in the first place, getting clear opt-in and consent, all of those are key. We also just recently launched a feature, anonymous tracking, where Radar can actually not persist any device level information at all. So no device IDs, no user IDs. We're just generating the events in real time. Obviously limits what you can do from a personalization perspective, joining that with other data. But that's certainly something that we think about as well. I'd imagine mParticle thinks about it similarly, controls for data minimization, data retention, who has access to what. I don't know if Shafiq wants to chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this earlier that we offer the fine-grained controls to adhere to whatever governance or privacy policy that you have in-house. So, in terms of like retention of data that's customizable to whatever you need. We also, promote data minimalization. We look at it from a perspective of what is the actual use case and what data do you need to power that use case. You don't need, I wouldn't need someone's first and last name, for example, to know that they like hot chocolate. I could anonymize that information and tie it to a anonymous ID, for example. So the platform has been architected in a way to support almost any governance requirements. We manage the consent. We have an integration, for example, with OneTrust, and we house the consent status in the customer profiles. And we process DSR requests on behalf of our partners. So like if someone came in and asked, customers requested that, we could process that in real time and forward that notification to all our downstream partners. So we take it very seriously. It's a core component of our platform, and we have many tools to help facilitate that.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. That's interesting perspective, and of course the sensitivity to that is massive, and you guys have both explained that that's a very high priority. So that's always
and
comforting.
Maybe one thing I'll add to that is I think sometimes we look at privacy from a negative lens as, oh, you need to protect us from like GDPR fines and all that stuff. And I want to offer maybe a slightly different perspective, is actually using that as a way to build trust with your customers, and using it as your advantage in terms of branding to say, hey, we take these steps so that we protect the relationship with you. We want to build a relationship based on trust. So I think maybe reframing the topic in that way, you can actually use it as a competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective and sounds pretty valuable to me. That's why we do these programs, pick up little tidbits like that. So here's a question, and it's for you, Shafiq, and it asks, what marketing automation or data warehouse integrations might be useful for these use cases?
The data warehouse. I'll get to that in just a second. It's a pet topic of mine, but of course, Radar is the big one, and I want to talk about. Obviously we have a very close integration with Radar, and we've built so many customer experiences with the location, the fencing and the location information that we get. But beyond that, I would say messaging is another big one, to be able to actually trigger some sort of offer or notification or whatnot. And then I would also throw in analytics to the mix. I did mention that earlier about the full life cycle of the experience. Analytics are important so you can really determine the efficacy of your programs, and then make adjustments based on what you see in terms of the customer behavior. For example, you could do a journey analysis in Indicative, our analytics tool, to see conversion rates between steps in the customer journey. So, for example, let's say you they hit the geofence, and then you did some action, you send a notification, but you saw a big drop off there. You can quickly, triage what that dramatic drop off is, and investigate it and optimize the experience further. So I would say those are the top ones. I mean, we have 300 partner integrations. Actually, one thing I would be remiss not mentioning is our loyalty integrations with tools like Punch. We have close, really deep, not just the breadth, but the deep integration with loyalty partners like that. But going back to the data warehouse, I think one important factor that we bring to the table is we can get the offline point of sale data that is typically stored in a data warehouse to power interesting use cases. We recently announced a feature called Warehouse Sync, which enables our customers to reverse ETL data out of a Snowflake or a BigQuery or anything like that to append attribute event data in customer profiles. So when you take that offline data and you combine it with our customer 360 and personalization capabilities, it's a very powerful way to activate all that data just sitting in your warehouse.
Okay, thank you. Questions are coming in, so let's more questions are coming in, so let's get to those. Here's a question that asks, why only QSRs in the statement? Seems like it could apply generically. Do you see any major differences? Patrick, you want to go first on that one? But does this apply just to QSRs, or do we have some full service options here?
That's a great question. It does not. We see similar applications for retail, for convenience, for grocery. I'll give you a couple examples. We power order ahead arrival detection for American Eagle Outfitters. So in the same way that location signals can be used, by Panera or Whataburger, understand when somebody's approaching to pick up a food order. Retailers like American Eagle Outfitters use radar to understand when somebody's coming to pick up a clothing order. Things like food waste and freshness are a little bit less important there. Drive-through is also less of a consideration, but definitely similar applications. Personalization, certainly applies as well. We see a lot of retailers really investing in what we sort of broadly call in-store mode. So what's going to get users to download the app and engage with the app in store? Maybe you're detecting when somebody's in a store and using that to automatically surface loyalty features in the app. Maybe you're unlocking things like scan and pay. Some of our customers have larger footprint stores, so you actually want to understand, are they in the shoe department or the golf department or at the register or whatever. So, definitely applications for retail. We're seeing a lot of interest, particularly this year from convenience store customers as well. Going back to that first slide I presented, where consumers have a lot of choices. If I'm gonna drive home from work and stop in and fill up my gas tank, it might be pretty convenient for me to just pop into the convenience store and grab a sandwich there. So we're seeing a lot of gas station and C-store brands invest in things like curbside or in-store pickup. Invest in using location-based signals for messaging. So there are definitely applications there as well.
That happens to me all the time. My wife's like, "Can you pick up milk on the way home?" And I'm like, I got to make a separate stop to a grocery store. That would be very handy.
Yeah, totally. For grocery as well, like click and collect, order ahead, kind of similar things. At Radar, our vision statement is location infrastructure for every product and service. So I think there are a lot of folks in this space that really kind of focus just on QSR and retail. We work with travel customers, payments customers, mobile gambling customers, ticketing apps, delivery apps, and very much building our platform in such a way that we can accommodate all these different types of use cases, not just QSR. And I think there's a really cool sort of cross-pollination of ideas and use cases that happens, where folks in the QSR space are taking inspiration from what retailers are doing. I think folks in the C-store space are really looking at what folks in the QSR space are doing. So it's cool to be in the position of servicing a lot more than just QSR, although that's a big focus for us.
And we see the same thing. We see I like the way you termed it, cross-pollination across industries. Consumers are consumers are consumers. And I think once one industry initiates a new behavior pattern that consumers latch onto, there's a quick follow effect that you see across different verticals. So 100%.
Here's a question, and it's for you, Shafiq. It says, can mParticle CDP connect to any CRM? There you go.
I want to dive into the question of what does CRM mean, because I think that the way I would answer that question, it kind of piggybacks to what the last question was, is we think of mParticle as a platform to assemble different experiences. So do we interface with like a Salesforce, or you could go all the way from Salesforce? I would say you could go all the way to like a Punch, because that's technically a CRM for like loyalty. So the high level answer is yes, but the devil's really in the details. And I would go back and say, okay, what is the use case that we're trying to drive? What is it? What data is it in the CRM that you're trying to collect to empower this particular use case that you're mentioning? So, high level answer is yes, but a big caveat would be, what is the actual experience that you're trying to drive? And what about the CRM that you're trying to? Are you looking at it just as a way for us to tap, attributes that are unique in that particular CRM solution? Or is it that you want us to push information to the CRM system depending on, purchase data, for example, or if you're doing a loyalty program, for example, is, hey, collecting the points the purchase was made, can you push that? And so we can add points to this particular loyalty program. So I think the context is very important and it matters.
Well, thanks for that distinction. There's a question that's to Nick, and it asks, is Radar working on anything to streamline third-party delivery handoffs?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about pickup use cases, but I think a lot of the QSR brands that we work with are really thinking about making it easy for customers to order in any channel, including delivery. So the short answer to the question is yes. And I would say if you're interested in that, definitely reach out to our team and we can share more. It's interesting. I think a lot of the QSR brands that we work with have mixed feelings about, working with delivery service providers. I think,
Yes.
We've mentioned a few, but obviously, you have less control over the customer experience. There are advantages to, getting folks to come out to your physical restaurants, having to sort of, pay that tax to the middleman, so to speak. So yes, definitely something that we're working on supporting, and happy to share more if you reach out to the team.
Okay, thank you. Well, here's a question that asks, do you have any learnings on what type of customer uses ready on arrival versus a drive-through, or for what occasion? Specifically, QSRs that are already fast, what is the advantage? I mean, yeah, so if you have a fast system and you're annually high on the list of fast drive-through sort of or counter service times, what are some of the applications, or what can you tell them about the people that use order ahead versus drive-through?
Yeah, one thing I think maybe this is obvious is kind of depends on where you're located. We're broadcasting live from Manhattan. There aren't very many drive-throughs in Manhattan, but on the flip side, Panera, who's a Radar customer, just launched a pickup only restaurant near us. So there's a pickup window. So I think part of it is what is most convenient for the customer in a given environment, whether it's in the suburbs or in the city. I think for folks that are already fast, I think if you're super duper fast, chances are you're using location signals already. I think there are always efficiencies to be gained, but I think there are a lot of applications to location outside of just pickup. We've talked about personalized messaging, on-prem experiences. One that I mentioned in the slides is just store locators, is also fundamentally a location use case. We find that a lot of the QSR brands that we work with are using Google Maps APIs to power their store locator. That often tends to be quite expensive. So part of what we think about at Radar is being a one-stop shop for location. If you're already super proud of your pickup or drive-through experience, like awesome, we can certainly help you make it better. But there's a lot more that we can do too in terms of helping you save money on your store locator, or powering personalized location-based messaging. So lots of other applications for.
Yeah, on that second one, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I was walking. I'm in New York right now too, and I was walking and I got a push notification for an offer, and it was just because I hit the geofence as I was walking by, and Apple's done a good job of just showing that little thing. And so, yeah, I 100%, I think beyond the drive-through, even it's the ability to grow and drive more business by unlocking more use cases with location.
Impulse and that unexpected offer that's a surprise and a pleasure to get. That's a good thing. This is a long question, so listen up, guys. I'm going to read this as slow as I can, but it's an interesting question. So question says, I am interested in comments relative to how well the order processing technologies blend with automated order handoff systems. Is manual handoff still predominant? How do the technologies assist in customer satisfaction, either through takeout or delivery, service, order, pickup? It's a big one, huh?
Yeah. I think if you want to, automate order prep and order handoff, location is a critical signal, right? How do you know when somebody's ready to receive the order? How can you use location data to automatically start prepping the order? When the customer is X minutes away. So, a lot of the customers we work with are still doing manual handoff. Again, in a time of labor shortages and labor challenges, using location as a tool, not to create an action like, hey, take this curbside order and run it out, but to using it in the name of operational efficiency and streamlining things. But again, we're seeing a lot of our customers and prospects encoding order ahead into their physical store footprint, investing in drive-through, thinking about automated handoff, a couple of years, 5-10 years into the future, and we see location as critical to that, right? I think there are probably also applications to using not just real-time location data for automation, but also using real-time customer data and preferences to maybe upsell you, in the moment, or give you an offer. So I don't know if Shafiq wants to chime in on that at all.
Yeah, I think that's a very good one. We've built these customer experiences where someone will actually go hit a geofence of your competitor, and then we'll push an offer for your location and say, hey, don't go there. We'll give you a free something over there. So there's definitely lots of creative ways that you can do interesting personalized offers.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Here's a question that asks and says, have there been challenges in getting customers to enable location services as privacy becomes more of a concern for individuals and mobile vendors? If so, how do you work around that challenge? Oh, this is a big question. Good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Apple and Google have definitely raised the bar for requesting location permissions over the years. I think, gone are the days of just, getting users to opt in for the sake of opting in, right? There really needs to be some clear value in it. They need to trust your brand and kind of trust what data you're going to collect and what you're going to do with it. So I think the same is true for notification permissions, for getting the user to fill out a profile and input other personal information. So I think in terms of working around that challenge, giving users a reason to opt in. Why should I grant you location permissions? Well, if I'm going to get my order that much faster, or I'm going to get access to these offers, or I can use a store locator to find nearby stores or whatever, that's pretty compelling. One thing I'll say too is I think we find that the vast majority of customers are comfortable granting foreground in-app permissions. It's really background location permissions that are more challenging. A lot of the use cases that we described today only require foreground permissions. So obviously things like store locators or in-store offers, there's some really cool new functionality on iOS that lets you pop a location-based notification even with only foreground permissions. Something that we're working on supporting in our product. And even some of the trip tracking features for order ahead, where you place an order, you tap I'm on my way, you might swipe away the app or put your phone in your pocket. If you've ever used navigation on Apple Maps or Google Maps and you've seen that flashing blue status indicator, or you've seen that notification in the tray, as long as you do that, you can actually track the user's location while the app is swiped away, with just foreground permissions, because it's very clear to the user from that notification or that flashing blue status bar that the app is using their location. So we find that particularly in the QSR and retail space, a lot of customers are saying, hey, we're going to focus on foreground permissions only. And I think what's really cool is you can do pretty much every use case we talked about today just with foreground permissions.
And I think a best practice is transparency, is being very explicit about how you're going to use a customer's data, what value they're going to get out of it, like what Nick said, and giving them the controls to turn those things off and on, and having a platform like an mParticle that can facilitate those preferences in real time and send them to downstream partners. So I think, again, reframing it as an opportunity to build trust is how you gain that.
Well, I also think it goes back to what you've already said, and that is delivering the goods. Okay, so there's sensitivity around privacy. Do I think a bit before I grant that? Yes, I do as a consumer. But if I'm suddenly getting pinged with offers that are not relevant to me whatsoever, then guess who's going to be the first one I'm going to remove that permission from? So all these things that Nick and Shafiq talked about obviously are key and important. But then to the people using these services, you got to make it relevant, or people just won't extend that trust, because it is a trust and they want something worth their while. So that's always good to remember as well. Here is a question that asks, how do you scale this across millions of touch points? Is this hosted cloud provider?
Yes, I think scaling it across millions of touch points is important, but also I would emphasize like the importance of doing this in real time, right? Which kind of ups the ante even further. So yeah, Radar's a cloud hosted SaaS platform. We don't offer an on-premise solution, but I think the way to think about it is all of the privacy and security controls we talked about. We help you sort of avoid needing to deploy anything on premise or reinvent the wheel when it comes to location. And we process hundreds of billions of locations per year. Our API usage patterns tend to kind of do what you'd expect. Kind of spike in the morning when folks are commuting, dip during the day, and then kind of spike during the evening commute. We obviously have customers around the world, so some of that evens out. But our goal is to across hundreds of billions of location updates and events per year, 99.99% uptime, and kind of have you not have to worry about it. That's how we think about it. I'm sure mParticle thinks about it.
We have a very, very similar philosophy. I mean, we work with some of the biggest enterprises in the world, so scale and uptime, and those are all table stakes. So we have a very robust architecture. We're in the cloud as well. We don't offer on-prem, but we are in the cloud. But our architecture scales and has all the bells and whistles, everything from scalability, high availability, even like where we house our data. You add data. My mind's gone blank, but where we host the data depending on the particular brands. If you're dealing with customers in EMEA, for example, we want to be cognizant of keeping the data there. So we have those capabilities, data residency, that's what I was thinking. We have those capabilities built into the platform, knowing that these are going to be requirements for our customers.
All good to know. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to roll on down the road here. But before we sign off, I do want to thank today's authorities, Nick Patrick of Radar and Shafiq Shivji of mParticle. Of course, another thank you must go to our sponsor, Radar, without whose backing and people, this program would not have been possible. mParticle, obviously, for helping us out with the information side of things. Finally, I need to thank our audience members for their time and questions. Those questions always add value to these programs. Thank you so much for offering those up. Please share this program replay link with interested associates when it hits your email inbox, and please do join us for future Nation's Restaurant News webinars. Until next time, though, goodbye, good health, and good day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everyone.